So when we start talking about models for supporting grief recovery, certainly the most common, the most discussed is the DABDA five-stage model, the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I think we need to dispel the idea because there's so many misconceptions that our clients tend to have around grief. And not the least of which is that they tend to conceptualize it as a linear process. They tend to conceptualize it as something in keeping with the DSM's revision that should have a certain period of time in which one reaches closure or returns to baseline functioning. And I have, for many years now, found more utility in the TIER model. TIER is an acronym that stands for to accept the reality of loss, experience the pain of loss, adjust to life beyond this loss, and reinvest in the reality that we're left with. Because DABDA leaves off with acceptance and really doesn't give us any ideas about, and how is it that I adjust to my life going forward? Specifically, how does one move towards acceptance? And in my work clinically, there tends to be a lot of spiritual and religious themes that need to be explored there. There's typically a lot of social norms or misconceptions, a lot of bad ideas that folks have around what it is that grief should look like, and I'll touch on a few of those in a moment. Clinically, we often refer to folks as having unresolved grief and loss, and my experience is that certainly no one wants to grieve. In my local community, recently we have had yet another cycle of overdose deaths, and a dear friend of mine posted something recently where she was honoring the person who had recently passed, but very candidly and with a great deal of vulnerability discussed being very fearful and apprehensive about grieving that loss because she recognized that there were several other losses over the past couple of years that she had not invested in grieving. And so my experience is that we never just grieve one loss. Whatever is unresolved, whatever has been repressed is likely to surface. But I think there is a very salient, very common fear around allowing ourselves to grieve. And it's the same fear that we see with trauma and so many other forms of treatment, which is the individual's fear that opening that box is akin to opening Pandora's box, and your client is afraid that they'll be overwhelmed, they will lose functioning, they won't be able to put themselves back together. And while that rarely, if ever, happens, it is nonetheless a common fear, one that I think we have to help dispel, and one that we have to get very pragmatic with. Folks need processes, they need steps to take.